What's up guys, welcome to this video. I just had a meeting earlier with a future partner within my agency, and he asked me a question about offer structure and messaging and positioning, priming, framing, and all of that good stuff that I felt the urge I had to make a video on and a video about. And the reason for this is really simple. It's because this stuff is the foundation for your agency to do well in any way, shape, or form. If you want your agency to make money at all, this is fundamental and it has to be implemented. If you do this wrong, no matter what you do afterwards, no matter how you do your content, no matter how you run your ads, no matter what you do with your sales team, no matter how you structure your cold outreach infrastructure, it literally doesn't matter at all. Zero, nada, niente, because this is the foundation that actually makes it profitable. And so in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how to do this and how to think about it, most importantly, so that you can implement this for yourself. Just so you know why I'm even qualified to talk about this in the first place, my name is Elias Mueller. I run Pace Collective. Over the last 3.5 years, we have worked with more than 300 agency owners one-on-one to scale them past $60,000 a month. We've had one person surpass 7 figures, so more than $1 million in a month. We've had many people surpass 6 and multi-six figures a month, and we've had a lot of people surpass 60K and even more surpass 10K a month. And so I'm very qualified to talk about this. My own businesses obviously have done very well in the past few years as well. And so in this video, I want to talk about the number one fundamental thing that made all of these businesses successful. This is not a quick trick or hack that you can implement and get results with right away, because that is not how business works. This is the fundamental groundwork that you need to lay for your agency for it to have any chance of succeeding and making money in the first place. And so what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about the case of this specific future partner and what needs to be done for him to make a change here. In this video, I'm just going to talk about the high level structure of it, because obviously, in his detailed situation and everything that goes into that and building it out, there's obviously more to it than what I can explain in just one simple YouTube video. But this video is going to be very valuable to you if you're running an agency and you're still stuck below that 10 to 20K a month mark and you want to get above 60K. So you are, if you're listening to this video right now, very likely in a situation where you make some money, you have some clients, there's some stuff happening, but you're just not quite there yet. And you feel like the more you work, the more volume you do, maybe the more outreaches you send, nothing is really changing and happening. The only thing that happens is you do it for a week and then you realize, damn, I've just spent 14 hours a day for 7 days and nothing really happened. I didn't really make much more money from it. So I might as well just, take some time off now and just spend my time more wisely, maybe with my family, my friends, my girlfriend, my wife, whatever that may be. This is a cycle that I've been in for a long time, okay? And I want you to understand that. I've been in the cycle for a long time where I made some money. I had a certain amount of money in my bank account. And because I had a certain amount of money in my bank account, I then relaxed and I laid back and didn't really do that much anymore. I still worked, but just way less with the intensity. And also, and this is really important, I was way less proactive in everything I was doing. I didn't think of new ideas, new strategies to implement. I didn't think of new things that have to be done. I just kind of sat back, relaxed, and did reactive work, which is the worst thing you can do. So again, I made some money. The number in my bank account went up and then it was sat at a certain level. And at this certain level in my bank account, I felt quite comfortable. So I didn't really do much. So naturally, it died down again. And then when it died down again, I dipped below my minimum standard for how much I want to have in my bank account. I started working again and boom, it went up again. Who would have thought, right? Effort actually brings you money. Crazy, right? Crazy. But my point being, this was a cycle that I was in for a very long time. And it wasn't until I understood how to structure my messaging and attract a team around it that actually everything changed for me. Okay. And so what we're going to talk about specifically right now is, first of all, offer structure, and second of all, messaging. We're going to talk about positioning as well. We're going to talk about priming, and we're going to talk about All of that in the context of marketing. We're not going to talk about the backend today. Backend isn't really relevant. What we're going to talk about today is purely the front end and how we market to these specific individuals that we want to sign as clients. And so, why is this important? Why do we need to understand this? The reason you need to understand this is because the whole effectiveness of your entire company is based upon your understanding of your ICP, your ideal client profile. If you're already making some money and you have some clients and things are already progressing for you, you very likely understand what ICP stands for. And you very likely understand as well that you have to understand your ICP at a very fundamental level for anything you do to be effective. The reason is very simple. You cannot get someone to buy something unless you speak their language. Not what you want to say, but what they want to hear. That's the issue. Most people come in and they start talking about the stuff that they are interested in, right? So I would start talking about, I don't know, the new phone that I just bought yesterday, or something that currently at this moment in my life is interesting to me. Maybe tennis, maybe golf, whatever that may be. They start talking about things and, very important, telling stories about things they are interested in. But that is not how you convert someone to become a client. The way you do that is by understanding their language, their choice of words, their tonality, and their behavior. And once you understand this, adjusting your marketing and your sales and your entire business based upon this one certain individual. And the reason for it is simple. If we, for example, look at iPhone, okay, Apple understands what their customers want on a very fundamental level. And obviously I can't dive into the specifics because I haven't studied Apple's marketing that much. But what I can tell you is that they have such a crazy good understanding of what their ideal client wants that these guys have a massive LTV. I will likely, this is my assumption, pay Apple hundreds of thousands of dollars over my lifetime. So my LTV is in the hundreds of thousands for them. And the reason for that is because they understand exactly what it is that I want. 2 iPhones, I have 2 MacBooks, I have an Apple mouse, I have a bunch of Apple things in my home. The reason I do is because I need gadgets or I need laptops and phones that integrate well with one another. I need laptops and phones that make it easy for me to navigate my day-to-day when I'm working. And because I don't do anything complex and need massive RAM, I don't need Windows. And so I'm using Apple. They understand their client avatar very well. And obviously they have a very broad client avatar, but I'm in this bucket as well. My point being, back to the point. You need to understand your ICP at a very fundamental level. Once you do so, you're going to be able to craft extremely compelling marketing and sales mechanisms based upon this. The reason for it is very simple. I'll give you an example or tell you a quick story. One of the client offers that one of the partners that we have within the collective is operating is currently doing more than $1 million a month. And this specific offer operates within the finance market, okay? Now, if you think about the finance market as a whole, when it comes to young people, right, younger demographics. For example, if we look at the market of trading coaches, a lot of trading coaches are extremely flashy. They show cars, they show lifestyle, and they show a bunch of things that their 16-year-old self would have dreamed of having, and they really portray that character extremely well. And it works, right? People buy their stuff. But the issue is because there's such an overflow of all of these people within the finance market selling this type of lifestyle, the offer that my partner is operating in this finance market is very down to earth. The offer owner is a very normal day-to-day guy. He's very down to earth, not flashy at all, and he just shows his life in a very authentic way. And because of that, people crave authenticity nowadays because there's such an overflow of information and new inputs that they get feeded with or that they get fed with every single day once they enter any social media platform. And so what they want is authenticity. They want to see real human beings. That's also why with these types of videos, I'm just talking about it the way I would talk about it with a partner, a client, a team member, whatever that may be. And the reason for it is because this is authentically how I talk and authentically how I go through things and explain things. So back to the point, because we understand The whole marketplace is here, and we position ourselves here with our messaging, our offer structure, and the way we frame everything. This is why we attract so many people. And so back to the point. The future partner that I was speaking about earlier, who had this issue with offer structure and messaging and positioning and priming, generally speaking with his marketing, didn't understand one very, very important factor to all of this. If you're making, for example, 10K a month, the main thing that you figured out is how to work hard and how to be consistent. And then you also figured out how to sell. These are like the top 3 things that you learned how to do if you're making 10K a month. The issue is that to grow from 10K to 60K and beyond, you need to make a change. This and more of this is not going to make you more money. Because the issue is that usually the type of ICP you're working with isn't aligned with who you need to attract as a client to actually scale there. Let me explain. So, if we look at the marketplace nowadays, most people charge what I would call mid-ticket. And we can regard mid-ticket as anything in between a, say, $500 price point all the way up to a 7K price point. That's what most people nowadays in this industry charge, okay? Now, let's assume for a second that 80% of people within our marketplace are charging these types of price points. If that's the case, then the remaining 20% charge, for example, let's do 10-10, right? 50-50. 10% charge low ticket, and then the other 10% charge high ticket. Okay, that makes sense. Why am I explaining all of this? Well, what we're seeing nowadays is we're seeing extreme market sophistication in this agency market, in this consulting market, or let's just call it, anything in the service-based industry. What we're seeing is that the market sophistication level is rising to an extreme level. People have bought tons of programs before. They've spent thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on people helping them scale. And most of the time they had bad experiences. Because the human brain always tries to save energy, it tries to spot patterns and then work and act based upon those patterns. And so the pattern that a lot of people are seeing now is, hey, if someone is offering me a $3,000 course, it is not good for me. That's the pattern that they recognize. Now, are there $3,000 courses out there that are good for them and would provide a lot of value and would make them more money? 100% they would. But the issue is the pattern that their brain saved says otherwise, so they're not going to purchase anymore. So anyone who's in this mid-range in the marketplace where most people reside automatically gets connected to everyone within that exact same vertical as well. And that's a very, very bad thing. I really need you to understand that. Because as soon as people connect you to everyone else in the marketplace, you do not stand out and you cannot charge whatever price you want. And you're usually bound to selling people on how much you do for them and how much more value you provide and how much lower the price is comparatively, which is not what you want to sell on, okay? That is not the factors that you want people to decide on when they decide to work with you or someone else. And so if you're in this middle of the market, you are going to get fucked extremely in the coming months and years, okay? Because this market has a bad reputation and most people connect bad things to it. I personally worked with more than, I think, 8 or 9 different coaches, consultants, mentors, etc., over the last 3.5 years. And because I did so, I also have those patterns top of mind. The people that I actually got a lot of value from were the people that were extremely high ticket, meaning people that were charging 10K a month for their services, right? Back then, for example, I still had the opportunity to come in at lower price points, but that's a topic for another day. So mid-ticket, not a good idea to position yourself in this part of the marketplace because of pattern recognition. On the other end, you have low ticket and high ticket. And what I mean by low ticket and high ticket is high ticket, I would regard anything 5 figures. So 10K plus high ticket. Low ticket, we can, for example, say $100 a month. These two industries are going to do extremely well. And I'll tell you why. High ticket is going to do extremely well because if you're charging very high sums and providing very high value for a small amount of very, very sophisticated business owners, you can make a lot of money and I think that's pretty reasonable. Makes sense, right? Because you're charging so much, with this one, it is fundamentally important that your fulfillment is dialed in as fuck. That's really important, okay? Because you're charging high ticket. And on the low end, we're charging, say, $100 a month. Here, it's also really important that your fulfillment is really, really fucking good. And the reason for it is because the type of customer you attract with a low ticket product is usually very low quality. And that's the average, right? And because the average customer buying at this price point is low quality, to avoid big chargeback rates and to avoid a bunch of issues with your clientele, you need to make sure that your delivery is top notch. It's only in the middle where people don't pay that much attention to it. It's only in the middle where people charge, say, I don't know, $1,000 or they charge $5,000 and they rip people off and it gets a bad reputation. On the low end, that can't happen because it is only $100 a month. Like that, there's nothing to rip you off on, okay? That's one. On the high end, you also can't do that because you're working with very professional business owners, people that make a lot of money, and you have a reputation to lose. These are the only two markets that you can position yourself in if you want to make at least a couple million a year in revenue. There is no other marketplace to be in than these two. And I really need you to understand that. Now, based upon this, we now understand, okay, we have to go either direction, but guess what? Most people, when they're scaling to 10K a month, are in this range. And that's the issue. They operate on mid four-figure price points, which is not bad. It's not a bad thing to charge 5K, but it just puts you at a disadvantage. And so how can you counter that? Well, you now need to shift your messaging, your offer structure, your positioning, as well as your priming. How do you do that? Well, first of all, obviously you need to understand where most of the people are within your marketplace, and then you can understand where you position yourself to be able to have an advantage and not look like everyone else. That's a hard thing to pull off, I know. When it comes to the messaging, you need to be extremely intentional with targeting the exact pain points that the exact type of client that you need to work with, either on the low end or the high end, has. Meaning on the low end, you go mass market. So you need to talk to every single person, or you need to talk in your videos like you're speaking to someone who writes at a 6th grade reading level. You need to speak to someone who's not emotionally competent. You need to speak to someone who's not really thinking logically. You need to speak to someone who doesn't have a lot of money. You need to speak to someone who isn't necessarily consistent. You need to speak to a marketplace that is the average person, okay? On the high end, you need to speak at an extreme sophistication level, meaning you need to talk about very high level problems and high level solutions for those types of people to see that you can help them solve this exact problem. So to sum up what we just went through, so you really understand this and get the most important takeaway from this video. Don't go mid-ticket, go in either one of these two markets, and then based upon the marketplace that you're in, understand your exact ideal client, and based upon that, structure your messaging and your positioning, as well as your priming and your offer structure in a way that is the most appealing and the most converting for this specific type of person. And this is exactly what we do with every single partner and client that we work with. We look at the marketplace based on all of the data that we have, because we've worked with more than 300 people one-on-one on this. And then based on that data, we then decide what the best approach is for the marketing based on that, right? What angles we need to hit and how we go at it. And then we structure everything therefore, hit KPIs, make money. That's it. That's it for this video. I hope you found this valuable. I know that we went through a lot of stuff and I was pretty quick in explaining some of these things as well. So if you do have any questions, just put them down below in the comments right now. I'm happy to reply to every single one of them. Outside of that, if you did find value in this video, for me personally, I make these videos for completely free. I sit down, take time out of my day, even though I'm very busy, and just take the time to walk you through stuff like this as much as I can with the time that we can have on YouTube. And so if you did find value, if you do feel like this video helped you get a step closer to that 60K a month mark, if you do feel like this impacted your life and your business positively, then I would appreciate a like as well as a sub a lot. And then outside of that, I'll see you in the next video. So that's that. Make sure to check out the first link in the description as well. It's a masterclass that I hosted last year for a couple of our clients and partners. Very valuable. I'm going through my story, a couple of case studies. I'm breaking down specific content and brand sequences that we're leveraging to be able to attract our ideal client profile organically. I know that it's going to be very, very valuable to you. And then outside of that, Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video.